Ready for takeoff.
We are cleared for takeoff.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Time to take flight in your community and in your life. This is Audio Airstrike.
You know what? I won't say. I was gonna say.
I'm going to just let the episode roll in. This is another episode of Audio Airstrike. I'm Everett Hall McNeil. Thank you once again for joining us on this episode. We need somebody who studies MMA and boxing to a T. And I wanted to bring Jacob Cooperman back on because I'm just going to say it. What the hell is going on with Ryan Garcia right now?
I wish I knew. That's the thing. Is there's the thing with these situations, we were kind of talking about it before the podcast. The thing with these situations is there's so much variability. So I did a video on this, and you guys can get a little shameless self-plug here. You guys can go to Gloves Up, the YouTube channel. That's where I cover a lot of this stuff, amongst other things. But I did a video on it, and God, there's facial twitches going on. His face is swelled up. His interviews are incoherent. Most times he's rambling. He physically looks and he acts differently to the Ryan Garcia of even 10 months ago, not even a year ago. There's a huge difference. Right before the Tank fight, completely different guy. Now we're seeing it. And the leading cause, and I think we both can kind of agree on this, is substance abuse. But, dude, I mean, it's not even a thing of how much MMA you study. It's I don't know on a personal level what's going on in this guy's life.
Yeah, my issue with it is this, right? So I feel like I'm watching two different people from when I saw him get put down the 7th round in the Tank fight versus what he's doing now. This doesn't seem like press. Because when I first saw him acting sporadically, like coming to Jake Paul, doing this and that, acting kind of erratic, I'm like, okay, this is some weird marketing that he's doing. I was like, first of all, you need to focus on Devin Haney and stop with all this riffraff. You focus on everybody but him. Usually when a boxer is in the middle of a feud, everything that he says up until the fight is locked in on the guy that he's facing. It's never I'm focused on these some people. I'm going to talk trash to them to a degree.
Or usually when
Traditionally, I've seen that.
And I was going to say, when you don't see that is usually when things go the worst.
Right.
Unless the fighter is very skilled, very talented. But I can tell you plenty of times in the UFC and boxing I've seen where someone's like, a reporter asks some stupid question like, listen, Jones, we get that you're focusing on Cyril, and this is not a concrete example, just saying, for hypothetical purposes, we know that you're locked in on Cyril Gane at heavyweight, but how about going back down to light heavyweight and taking on Jamal Hill? And he's like, yeah, I think Jamal Hill presents a lot of issues. I would love to face him. We're working on that. That makes me think, that's this fight. Because there's not going to be a level of focus that you have, to your point, Ev, where you're going to be completely and fully immersed in breaking down your opponent. You don't play boxing. It has to be 100% locked in.
His head is not in the right mind space. On paper, physicality-wise, he may look in shape, but like mentally and spiritually, he's not in a good place, at least from what I'm seeing from the outside looking in. And I'm genuinely concerned. And the reason why we even bring it up on this podcast, because how many times have we seen this? Like, for example, right? I'll just bring this up right now. I'm sitting over here yesterday. I'm like scrolling through the timeline. All of a sudden, Ryan Garcia is like trending. All of a sudden, I see a room with him and Andrew Tate. I go in, I see a clip, and he's talking about that he was drug away by the elite. We'll just call them the elite.
Yeah, the elite.
Drug away by the elite, and he was forced to watch kids be inappropriately touched in a way that they are never supposed to be touched.
At Bohemian Grove, which
Trigger
is
warning.
Actually one of the most credible parts of that story. Bohemian Grove is a real thing. Alex Jones did get footage of the ceremony itself, and there is actionable evidence that you could look to and say Bohemian Grove is real. But the rest of that story, to your point, is absolute. First off, just came out of left field. It was similar to you. Go on, hey, what's Andrew Tate, Ryan Garcia, what's this? Click on it on Twitter and listen to the whole thing. That's actually what inspired me making the video. Mm-hmm. It was just it was odd. He seemed erratic, but not erratic to the point where he couldn't formulate words, more so coherent thoughts. And not only was he talking, I think he had said that they had done stuff to him when he was 2 years old. I don't want to be too explicit on the podcast. The same thing he alleges that they did to the kids, they did to him back when he was 2 years old. And the biggest thing now is that he says he has evidence on his phone that he'll and this is something I see from a lot of these celebrities that say this type of stuff, that he'll expose at the right time, whatever that means. I don't know when the right time for him would be. So that's what I think leads a lot of people to say that this is for publicity purposes. My answer to that would be, not to get too far off the subject at hand, would be, when does publicity for a fight or having an outburst go too far? I think we look at this as a line in the sand that has been blatantly blown past.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest with you. Like, watching this, it's kind of like I had a whole bunch of emotions. One, I was annoyed.
At Garcia?
I'm annoyed at the whole situation. Who is in this corner making sure that he doesn't get into this stuff?
I don't
Who is
think anyone
actually, you know what I mean? If he has a bunch of people around him, and I'm just speculating at this point, who is there saying, no, Ryan, you can't do this? No, Ryan, you can't do this. This is going to look bad for the brand. It's going to look bad on you. You have to handle it with a certain level of maturity. We cannot have you out here looking like that. Who is, every time these celebrities do something off the wall crazy or say something, or they're expressing their pain through some type of way where, you know, it could be destructive, why is there nobody telling why is everybody end up being a yes man? Why is nobody sitting over here saying, no, look, I may get fired. You may cuss me out. You may give me a bad review on Twitter. You may say this, that, and the third about me, but I'm doing this because I genuinely care about you. Ain't nobody doing that because, and I hate to say this, people are tied to him financially. So people are tied to him from a logistical perspective. People are tied to him physically, whether it's family, whether it's friends. The only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is who is tied to him spiritually. Does he have peers? If he is a Christian, if he does believe in Jesus like he claims, who are the people that are holding him accountable when he acts out like this? Another thing, what led him to start taking, if there is substance abuse play, which based on his behavior looks like it is, because I've watched interviews years back, or at least a couple years back, where he did an interview, pretty normal interview. He sounded like he knew what he had to say and say all the right things. Okay, cool. This is very erratic behavior. This is the first time I've seen, outside of him trying to talk trash, which he made, you know, when he sobers up, he needs a little bit of work in that department when it comes to trash talking. That's just a little jokey joke. But in all seriousness, though, like, when he's doing his regular interview, sober, allegedly sober, we don't see none of this. Now we're seeing all this, and it's very erratic behavior. It's a manic episode, damn near. And, like, who is sitting over there being like, no, you're not going on Twitter on your phone doing this, bro. Like, we need to get you help.
Well, I think, so there's a couple of things, or actually a few things that you had said that I remember just kind of taking some mental notes on when I had watched the video and going back in preparation for my own video. One thing that stands out to me was a lot of people were saying that it was the downfall, or the more manic Ryan Garcia we're seeing now is a byproduct, or I should say a product of him losing to Tank, which, I mean, do I say that has nothing to do with it? Not necessarily. He is coming off of a win coming into this fight. A lot of people don't know that, right? So can you account that to some of that erratic behavior? Sure, maybe. What I think is infinitely more believable is that at some point, and I hate to be, sometimes the most obvious answer is the one right in front of you, right? Or is the correct answers. Let me take that again. Sometimes the most obvious answer is the answer that's kind of right in front of your eye. Wait. Sometimes the right answer is the one that's staring you right in the eyes. And I think this is a substance abuse issue. I think it might be a catalyst of a lot of pressure coming down on him. And to your point, it doesn't seem like he has those guys around him to kind of say, okay, let's slam the brakes, right? One thing I remember from the Tank fight was that it was found out shortly after the fight, and I think he switched teams because of this, that there was a mole in his camp that was looking at training sessions, recording training sessions, was bringing information back to the Tank team, right? So by all accounts, he hasn't really had a good track record of, let's just say, keeping good people around him. And I don't know if that's a him thing, right? I don't know if that's a living in California thing. I don't know if that's a social influencer thing, because I've heard California is pretty plastic. I definitely absolutely know for a fact that social media can be very plastic. And then I think I've never been famous, obviously, to that extent, but I'd imagine when you get to that level, it is more so about kind of picking and choosing your battles, like understanding who can. I mean, what did there's so many lines and bars, but Drake says like no new friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of that idea where it's like you can't really. I think there comes a point where you have to start. Always in life where you have to start vetting people, but I think it becomes the most kind of upfront and apparent when there is that power dynamic there. Ryan's a young guy. We were talking about this, with Kevin in the office earlier. Young guy making a lot of money, one of the biggest stars in boxing, and now he's having these big money fights. A lot of people are also, there's a lot of stuff circulating that he might be in a little bit of gambling debt now. So there's all these things that he has to offer other people, but that he also has to kind of deal with interpersonally. And I think whenever that stuff happens, it's just a concoction that never, ever goes well. And I mean, on the spiritual aspect, I'm Jewish, so sort of a little bit of, I guess, overlap there with our two religions, right? Like the really religious people, I think, in any field, there should be someone there to say, okay, hey, right, we talk a lot. I saw him in the Devin Haney, and I saw him in the Devin Haney press conference talking about Jesus, saying, hey, Ryan, like, what you're doing right now, this is not, you need to relax. Like, just take time, calm down. I don't even think it's necessarily a religious thing. Just saying, settle, The fight is April 20th, so he's still got some time. Get things under wraps, get things nice and nailed down, whether he does or he doesn't. I don't know, but this is a situation that's going off the rails big time.
Yeah, and it's like a car crash that you see coming, and nobody's being like, yo, we got to stop this car crash from happening. That's literally what it looks like. And I'm genuinely concerned because at what point does somebody say, all right, yo, take the phone from him for a bit. Like, yo, he's wilding. He needs to be focused. We have a big fight coming up April 20th. That's literally within a month. Literally within a month.
Right.
So the way I look at it, it's like, at what point do we get together, make sure he's sober? We got to have, at this point, push the fight back if you have to. But then there comes if we push the fight back, we lose money. If we push the fight back, that may be a trigger for him to go off and have another episode again.
I think, more so the second one, because I think if you push the fight back, you can even generate more interest. As bad as it sounds, this has generated a lot. And I hate to say this because as a boxing fan, I'm not necessarily saying I'm a boxing purist, but as a guy that likes to watch boxing and understands, I feel like, the nuance in building up fights, this unfortunately has given this fight a lot more steam.
Yeah.
Right? Because Ryan Garcia is the A side, right? So I don't think you necessarily lose money pushing the fight back a month, right? But you do also risk him kind of going off the deep end entirely, which is still very much so possible. The same way that I think a month is enough for him to kind of get reeled back in, stay consistent with training. I think conversely, a month is more than enough time for him to sink deeper into this hole that he's in. And, maybe it also comes down to his management. I know he's managed by Oscar De La Hoya, and that guy.
Hey, yo, Oscar. I'm gonna just say this as a disclaimer. Now, daggone well, if that's the case, and he's in your camp and stuff of that nature. Hey, Oscar, bro, you've dealt with similar situations and came over a lot of different things. You come on now, you see what's going on here. Like, yo, seriously, like, step up and intervene and help this young man out. Like, for real. Like, knowing how older he is now and the stuff that he went through back then, he should know better than anybody. It's like, yo, I gotta shield him. I'm not seeing that done.
I don't think they have the best relationship, though. That's the other. I'm not putting that on Ryan. I think I honestly think Oscar De La Hoya is kind of a scumbag. I don't think he's necessarily going to be the type to like pull a fighter aside and say, "Hey, this is what you can do. This is what you should, Ryan. This is what you should do so that to avoid what I had to deal with earlier." I don't honestly. And I don't know the guy. I've seen clips of him talking. He does seem very plastic. He does seem very fake. And he seems like the type to say, I want to live vicariously through this younger boxer's career. That's why he got, I don't know if you remember, this was one of the press conferences for the Tank fight. Ryan got into it with him and Bernard Hopkins. So you're managing the kid, and he's going up there, and you guys are feuding.
Yeah.
And and Oscar De La Hoya, he gets interviewed after the fact. He's like, oh, these kids, they don't know that they... Just a bad taste in my mouth. I don't think Oscar is a guy you really want in your corner. And I think it's sad to see. It seems like how few people he has around him. I don't know where his family is or what they're doing. You know, his ex-wife came out on Instagram and is like, I'm worried about him, but that was on an Instagram story.
Yeah.
Why does that need to be said on an Instagram story?
Right.
The entire situation is nasty.
But I think the reason why she even posted that, it's to alarm people. Like, you know, it's bad if your ex-wife that you're not even with anymore is saying, yo, I'm concerned for him.
Yeah, but
He
I don't
needs all
know.
prayer he could get. I'm just saying, that is
Something-
a sign.
Listen, that's a sign. That is most certainly a sign. Again, I feel like a lot of the parts of the situation, or let me just that. I think it's with a lot of the other parts in the situation, it's a sign, but it could be a sign of a whole bunch of different things, right? Where his ex-wife, that's your ex-wife, right? Like, I don't need to keep bringing up my ex-girlfriend, but let's just say I get famous, I have a controversy, and my ex, who I just recently broke up with, says, oh, this is what Jake always did, and I need you guys to... It's like, why you just... If you're concerned about me, hit my line in private. Now, of course, there was a whole bunch of stuff going around about how he didn't have his phone, but he was still tweeting. I don't necessarily believe that he didn't have his phone.
Right.
So you could have hit him at the very least in private. You didn't need to go out. You didn't need to put it on your story. She is bad, though. She's pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. That's all right.
Yo, she's
I
bad.
said, hold on. Let me talk. Let me see what he's talking about. Okay, Ryan.
If you date his ex-wife, I'm gonna definitely look at you like, you sure you want to make that move?
No. Well, especially with like Crazy Ryan. I don't know what he'd be doing to me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think he'd be... I'd be a little bit scared. I don't know about...
I'd be scared for you, honestly. Like, and this is nothing against... I'm not trying to incriminate them at all. I'm just saying that you saying that's a dicey move to be, especially with how that situation was or how it's going, man.
I know he has a lot... I think he has a baby mama, I think. Or he has a son somewhere. You can fact check me, and again, like if you have to cut out and post, that's okay too. But I think he does have... It's a lot of... There's also, again, that whole gambling thing. So I think the money situation is not the best either. It's just, I think it's almost like a cookie cutter type of fall off. But in some ways also not really cookie cutter. There's a lot of similarities in a lot of other big celebrities with their kind of blow ups and their big crash outs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a lot that factors in, right? So when a person gets famous, and I'm gonna just be honest, I'll be straightforward, I'll be raw and uncut with it. The first thing they are being taught without being taught is to neglect what you grew up with. Neglect your principles that you grew up with, keep it at the door. That's not gonna work in this ecosystem. You have to put on a front to a degree, you have to put on a character to a degree. This is about the branding, this is about how much money we can make. And what happens is you are telling this person to push aside the very essence of who they are, and they keep on doing this other process that they're getting acclimated to. And while, yes, the short-term gain and the big money comes in, and yes, it's like an endorphin that goes off because now you're at a level that you've never been to before, but you left the very essence of who you were at the door, your principles that you left, some friends that were actually good to you that you really don't pick up the phone for. When you do all that, there is an emptiness that money can't solve. There's an emptiness that sex is not going to solve. There's an emptiness that, I'm sorry, any material thing that you can think of, it's not going to solve it because you left the essence of who you are to the wayside, to the trash,
Back of the door.
to the dumpster.
Yeah.
So now you are sitting over here trying to figure out and trying to look and search for the essence in other people, in other situations, in other girls, and other guys, and other friends, and other fake family members. You're trying to seek the essence that you lost. And really, it's because you allowed somebody to come in your circle and tell you, hey, fam, you really want to get to the next level, you're going to have to neglect. they're not going to tell you that verbally and so direct, but they are going to dress it up in a certain way to make it look sexy and make it look nice. So that way you are slowly starting to do it. It's a slow process. You know what I mean? We have a lot of talented people out here, brother. There are so many talented people that never necessarily made it to a Taylor Swift, Beyonce, or even a Ryan Garcia level in terms of success. I'm not talking about mental health or none of that. Just talking about success. All because they said, you know what, I'm not sacrificing my character. I'm not sacrificing who I am just to get all this. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be empty inside. What's the point? So when I sit over here and look at this situation constantly, the reason why a lot of celebrities end up feeling this way, the reason why a lot of celebrities end up screaming at the top of their numbers, Jesus, is because they have tried to figure out, not even tried to figure out, they have been tried to fill a 20-year, 15-year, 28-year, 30, 50-year void, and they ain't got no other options, bro. They ain't got no other options. And then on top of that, now you are a slave to the very practices that you've been doing that got you to all that success.
Right. I was going to say, it commodifies your art too. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm reading The Creative Act by Rick Rubin right now, and it's such a healthy book for anyone that is a creator. I would highly, highly recommend it because it's cleared a lot of my mental blocks. And the art of creation, if you really think about it, and this is even before I read Rick's work, if you think about the art, like you thought of this podcast one day, you just said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna make the cover art. I'm gonna start to put out episodes. I'm gonna get a camera. I'm gonna get mics. I'm gonna make this thing a reality. Now we're sitting here. What is this episode? I'm assuming 243.
We are definitely in the 200s. That's
yeah, definitely 200s. But the fact that you've crested 200 episodes, that is insane. The show that I made, right? The shirts that I make, it's an idea and you bring it into reality. That practice, if you really break it down, you think about it. Isn't that insane? You're bringing something that is beyond our physical realm of reality. And you're taking that and you're bringing it into the physical through your work, through your creativity. That is a beautiful act, right? But then what happens is the vices of the everyday world get introduced. So then you have money. You have people looking to capitalize off of that work. I mean, one thing that we're both Joe Budden fans, or at least fans of his show the way it was, one of the things he always complains about is corporate versus the creators. Mm-hmm. Corporations will bring in a producer with a producer, and they'll money down your creative idea until it's not even really your idea anymore, right? Then what happened to your creativity? If you get signed to, let's just say, like a Spotify, and the thing that you love to do now, there comes with that price tag. You say, okay, great, I get to do exactly what I'm passionate about, nothing less, and I get to do that every single day. Well, it's not the truth. Really, because there comes with that stipulations, right? Spotify maybe doesn't want you saying this, or maybe doesn't want you saying that, or maybe doesn't want you. They say, oh, you know, they'll politely in a bunch of different words say, hey, basically, we don't like this idea that you have. We're gonna make it Spotify's podcast,
right? And
rightfully so, because that's what they paid for, right? So I think a lot of it too is that not only did they neglect their family, not only do they not have a lot of really genuine connections around them, but now they're starting to see that, hey, my art has become kind of more like a job, like production instead of creativity. For Ryan Garcia, boxing, he's starting to figure out as a sport. Wow, I'm popular today. He's starting to figure out that it's less about being a sport, and I'll just say it like this, it's more about the business end. That's why boxing is such a crooked sport. It's because there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes. Yeah. That, you know, fighter negotiations, fighter contracts, there's all that stuff constantly going on. And that's complete. It would be completely reasonable in my mind to see a guy after all this at such a young age crack and start to turn to drugs, you know, to deal with all of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. There's nothing worse than doing something for the love of the creativity. You make a living out of it, and then all of a sudden you realize that this process that at one point felt like it was mine is not mine anymore. I think you do bring up a good point, because the way I look at it is this. Everybody's called to do something. Everybody's called to carry out something. If that person cannot carry out to the degree that they are carrying out that vision because of an outside source that, truth be told, is leeching off of the creativity in certain ways, depending on how business is set up and depending on how the business practices. One thing, you have a partnership with somebody. It's a whole other thing when the papers kind of make it seem like that now you're working for them. So now they have say over your creativity, which is why I tell people, and I've told people in the past on this podcast, you really got to be careful who you let in creatively. Because some people are there to enhance your creativity, and some people are there to take from your creativity. So you have to definitely guard that with your life.
And it's tough because boxing, just bringing it back to Garcia's situation, right? For this podcast, you have the choice. You can go to a Spotify, you can go to a Stitcher, right? You can get an exclusivity deal from Apple. You can get an exclusivity deal from SiriusXM. You could also just go to Patreon. And your fans, you could do direct to consumer. That's what some artists do in the rap game, right? Obviously, it's the same thing with the big labels. Big labels, countless times over the years have messed up artists and screwed them over, saying, "Oh, we'll get you luxury watches, we'll get you cars, but we're not going to pay you for this month." But look at this shiny thing, and most artists will be like, "Okay," or some artists might even feel like they need to do that to escape, their current lives or live the life that they want to live. There are options, though, with most forms of creativity. I feel like to build your own platform, to build your own corporate boxing. What is Ryan Garcia going to go and put on a Ryan Garcia's Backyard Fighting 7?
I'm gonna be honest with
PBC,
you. Yeah.
WBO, they have the monopoly on boxing.
Yeah, and the sad thing about it is that it's going to be hard unless you're a Mayweather for somebody to own independently their own fighters, for you to carve out your own promotion. Like, when something has been in place for years and you are becoming an outlier or doing something that nobody really has ever done, you're going to come up against scrutiny because you can't be controlled in the way that other people want to control you. So when I look at the Ryan Garcia situation, was that the case that led him down that road to this? Was it the personal issues? And I cannot speak closely about his family personal issues. I just know he's not with he has an ex-wife and they have kids. So that's about as far as I'm going to go. Was that a trigger for him?
Well, he also, I don't know if you know, he got divorced when his son was, I think it was the day after either his wife announced that she was pregnant. Again, fact check me on this, but I think it was either after his wife announced that she was pregnant or their son was born. So, I mean, I could see, to your point, a world where this guy feels caged in, trapped by his success. I'm writing a book. I almost have it finished. I'm just going through its final edits. And I have a chapter about how success really does trap you. A lot of people look at success. I think the name of the game is progression. Success will put this shiny vista in front of you with money. It'll put fame. It'll put extra attention from women. Right? Anything you could possibly want, but what does success also bring with it? The expectation to perform, to keep up that success. Ryan Garcia, people want to see him fight, right? There's a lot of pressure there. Right? People expect a certain thing from Ryan Garcia constantly, and if they don't get it, his livelihood is in the gutter, right? At least with working a 9 to 5, you could show up, right? You can call in sick for a day. You can take a week vacation, and nobody at the job is going to, as long as you, of course, approve it, nobody at the job is going to be like, did Ryan Garcia, is he gone forever if he leaves the internet for a week? Are we never going to see Ryan Garcia again? I mean, I always think about it like that, which is that it must be for creatives, for athletes, that pressure to perform in its own way has got to be its own funny type of trap.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because it's one of those situations where, are you creating for the love of creating, or are you creating for the sake of, I got to do this for my livelihood? Like, at what point, and that's the thing about, like, what I'm doing. Like, would this be great to build this, and I am building this, into something where, I could do this full time if I wanted to. Absolutely. But I still want to have fun and the love doing it. I don't want to ever get to a point where I hate doing films and I'm just doing it to get a job and I get a big paycheck. I want to do it for the love of the craft. If I'm sitting over here doing this, I want to do this for the love of getting on this mic, having engaging conversations with people that either I just met or I've known for years. So it's one of those situations, like, at what point, like, with some people, bro, there are people right now, from back in the day, maybe even right now, they may be a better boxer than Ryan Garcia. They may be a better boxer than Floyd Mayweather. They may be a better boxer than Devin Haney on paper and actually ability-wise. You may have guys in the trenches working and ability-wise they may evolve and become better skilled than those fighters. But here is what separates those guys from others. Are you doing it for the love of boxing, and can you keep up the performance and balance out the love for it and balance out the fact that you can make a living off of it? Can you balance all of those things?
I think there's also guys that do thrive in the more plastic type of environment that comes with all the social media attention. I think I pinned Ryan Garcia, quite frankly, as a guy for a while that I thought really didn't enjoy boxing all that much, but enjoyed the attention that came with it. I think there are people, just in the same ways there's people in corporate that love that environment where it's a little bit more fake and you get to climb the ladder, right? I think that there's people that genuinely do enjoy that kind of social, they get back up there, and they never really did it, to your point, for the art. It was kind of like, okay, now I'm in the door. I got everyone's eyes on me. Let me see what the most amount of money I can make is. Let me see what the biggest snafu I could cause is, and let's see how many eyes I can get on me, how much attention I can generate for myself. I think that there are guys like that, and there might be guys in the trenches right now, just in the same way that there are guys repping it out, working in the gym every single day. There's a lot of great inner city. I know in a lot of population centers, a lot of really quality boxing gyms with a lot of really quality talent, guys that are fighting to put food on the table. So a lot of absolute killers in there. There are also guys that are trained to become Instagram famous. That's just everyone. It's all a come up, and you gotta. I think what separates some people, and it's what we talked about, is the genuine versus the non-genuine, right? And I think, unfortunately, it seems like the zeitgeist or the kind of influencer sphere right now that we have going on is ran by the insincere. You find more so than not that you got the. I'm not trying to throw shade on it. Who's a good example of someone that's really insincere? That's a really big celebrity right now. You got the Kardashians. Those people
Fair
are
enough.
kind of at the upper echelon. I'm not saying all the Kardashians are bad, but that kind of lip filler, plastic surgery, nothing's real, stupid reality show type of deal.
Yeah,
you
I get
got
what you're
those
saying.
people running the game. So, to me, all people of all creeds and types enter in, and some people are just better off and better suited for that environment. But I can only imagine it becomes so grating when you can't even imagine. Ryan Garcia can't even go outside. He couldn't even go to a grocery store without being stopped. And that's you said this, and I wanted to kind of go off of it earlier on in the podcast. Is he's sacrificing his family life. He's probably tossing old friends away to the side, but there's also that aspect where his old life, he can't go back to that. He can't. He can never step outside and not be approached now.
Do you think that, to a degree, that's what's tearing him apart?
Probably. I mean, I can't. I'm not going to speak to how lonely a successful life must be, but everyone talks. I mean, Drake has made entire albums off of that. I don't know why I keep referencing Drake a lot, but
it's a pretty fair comparison.
yeah, peak views. Drake talked about that a lot. And it is, I'd imagine it gets pretty lonely at the top unless you're making friends with a lot of, that's why I see a lot of actors kind of powwowing with other actors. Because I imagine they need someone that's on their level that's going to understand their plight. And that you don't really know on the flip side if anyone's using you for your money. So it's got to be so
And also,
tough.
I want to add this little tidbit in here because I did say something earlier about knowing who to trust and this and that. I think the issue that comes up in a lot of facets is, for example, I'm going to use you as an example, right? We're both coworkers. We've worked together 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. That's what we do. In the event that as life goes on and you are transitioning into a major media personality.
When?
Okay, gotcha. When? I appreciate it. Yeah. Speak that into existence.
Gotta
I like
speak
it.
into existence.
I like it. So when you transition into being a media personality, okay, now you kind of go through these similar things.
I'm sure.
Principals go through, for some principals may be left out in the door. You kind of going through similar situations. I'm not saying you would go wild out and be as crazy as what Ryan's doing, but I would say, okay, you're facing potentially similar issues that he's probably facing. So You going through that. Now, when I roll up on you years later, you're in your 30s.
Pretend like I don't know you. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, it can be either that or it's like because you've known me long enough and you've had enough conversations with me, to a degree, you'll feel comfortable talking to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, so you're saying the other side around, which is that, you know that there's people.
But a stranger,
Nah.
and you don't know their intentions, they may not even be a bad person, but
Can't give them the benefit of the doubt.
On the level that it's on the level that I don't know this person and I don't know his intentions. And here I am, a major media personality, and I got people already with their hand out doing this. So, you know what I mean? It's like, I do understand and I do have empathy to a degree for celebrities, but my sympathy only goes so far for celebrities because when they come across people doing this, and they may not be instantly doing this, but eventually they're going to do this because they're looking for something. And I'm not saying everybody that's in their camp is like that, but you have people that enhance and you have people that leech. And so they are forced to make a decision. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, the pressure of dealing with that takes shape. You might come into that at some point in life where it's one thing if I'm walking up towards you, because you know what my intentions are. But if it's somebody, he could be genuine, but you just don't know him. You may find yourself making those same, trying to figure out making those choices. So with Ryan, this is another case of another celebrity that we question who's around him. Who's being that brother's keeper?
Nobody good.
Who's turning around and saying, hey, yo, man, I need to talk to you for a second. Nobody's doing that. And that's the scary thing about this whole situation.
And perhaps
nobody is saying, outside of, you want to know what's crazy? Call me crazy for saying this. I find it more sincere that Andrew Tate is saying, yo, I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't even like Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of him as a person, but he came off way more genuine in that interview than anyone else.
He came off way more concerned and way more genuine than anybody else that I've seen in Ryan Garcia's camp.
Which gave me a lot of pause. Because I was like, all right, if you got Andrew Tate, who's the guy that's constantly, the Matrix is coming after, if he's the guy that said, oh, no, they can touch you, that also gave me, and I said this in the video, that gave me a lot of kind of apprehension to say, oh, that's odd.
Yeah.
That is odd. And to your point, I mean, sure, we could sit here and say this because we're not famous yet, or we're not these media personalities yet. We don't have, we do have bodies of work, but not nationally known or acclaimed bodies of work yet. I also want to bring in the idea that, hey, maybe Ryan Garcia knows this about the people around him, because I don't think people are stupid, especially, I mean, if you're getting up to that level and you have the following, I think Ryan Garcia has like 10 million on Instagram.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer in that even the Kardashians are smart people. Maybe that's an unpopular take, but to get to that point, you got to be smart in some area, especially knowing people.
Right.
To be that good at marketing. I don't think Ryan Garcia is sitting there saying, I got good people around me. I don't think he's saying that. I think what it is, and I've dealt with this too, and we've had lengthy conversations about this without getting into too much detail, sometimes you just have trouble cutting people out of your life, even if deep down you know they're bad for you. Right? For Ryan Garcia, he's a young kid. He's in LA. He's training boxing. He's on these huge stages. Sometimes all you want is people to talk to. And sometimes, I'll speak from personal experience, not at that level again, but when you're trying to accomplish big things, sometimes cutting someone off that's bad for you feels less natural or less of a good idea than just staying with that person because they're kind of your comfort zone, right? So you might understand that on some level these people are not good for you, but at the same but in the same breath, these people are the people that you've, let's just say, known the longest for being in this game. Or even if it's toxic family members that want handouts, those are your family members. You know, that's a hard behavior to unlearn, is not talking to these people and cutting them completely out of your life. If it was easy, everyone would have done it.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to do. So I also want to give Ryan a little bit of bail there in saying that, yeah, it's one thing to say that I need to get these people out of my life. It's another thing to execute on that. And I think that's the difficulty that he's probably facing.
Yeah, I definitely will. My last words is this. Hey, look, man, we thoughts and prayers, and I'm not saying that loosely. We are generally concerned. Like, if you need to take time away from boxing, get yourself mental, physical, and spiritual help so you can come back stronger, dude. Like, we are genuinely concerned. I mean that, yo. Like, if you seeing this somewhere in any way, shape, or fashion, like, please take care of yourself. You got a lot of people, not even just fans, just people that are seeing this and going, yo, I'm concerned for you. Like, please, Ryan, get the help you need. And sincerely.
I think it's something I want to just touch on, then I'll give my final word is, you could say, right, and it's true, that boxing is just boxing. At the end of the day, it's a sport. Your mental health is always going to take precedent. But another thing that kind of bastardizes the media or I should say the upper echelons of media of boxing, of all these things, is that it's no longer boxing.
Yep.
Now you're part of the beast.
Yep.
Now you can't take that time because now you've got all these people saying, well, you're our moneymaker. You can't go away, Ryan. Just take his phone away, lock him in a room for a couple of days. He'll be fine. We got to keep this going. We got to make money. And that's what you were saying. It's really a terrible thing. And to mirror your sentiments, I hope you, Ryan, again, if you're listening, man, you got to slow down, postpone the fight. I mean, I'm a fan of Ryan's. I like watching him fight. I'd rather him just push back the fight as long as he needs so he can get himself right. And on the off chance, the sliver that this might be a real global Illuminati situation, go ahead, drop the evidence. I don't know. I mean, that's something, but I doubt that that's what it is. It gave me kind of chills watching that video, though.
Yeah, anytime you see celebrities like acting that way, it's always going to be an uneasy feeling just because
it's kind of like almost paddling in open water.
Right.
Because you don't see what's below you. Mm-hmm. Right? They're the sharks down there.
Right.
They see a whole new area that we have no idea about. So, for all we know, he could be telling the truth. And that's, to me, the most unsettling part of all of it.
Well, depending on how far we are from April 20th, we might get the answer to all those questions. But I want to thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate you.
You're the GOAT, man. I appreciate you.
Yep, absolutely, man. And I appreciate you guys for listening. We will be back with another episode next week. Until then, you guys take care and have a good one. Ryan, thoughts and prayers. Please take care of yourself. I mean that.
Thanks, guys.